Let's move along to Western Australia, which is set to become the second state after Victoria to legalise euthanasia. The voluntary assisted dying legislation passed WA's upper house late yesterday. The controversial legislation will now be sent back to the Legislative Assembly for a final vote. It passed 24 votes to 11 in the upper house. So, Jack, it looks like within days it's expected that it will pass and voluntary euthanasia will be available in Western Australia. Is this progress?
Look, I'm sympathetic to the notion that someone would want to end their lives, and as somebody who I guess at my very core, I kind of follow classic liberal ideals, which means what somebody does, as long as it's not really bothering me, fair enough. And if they're going through an immense amount of pain, then I don't want to be standing in that road. But the issue that popped up with this particular piece of legislation was the legislative mechanisms by which people could be taken advantage of. So they actually had an issue right up to the last moment that a doctor could give you some kind of supporting documentation to allow you to take your own life, and they could also be a part of your will. No one had even asked the question. So it got all the way to the point where they're approving the law, and all these little loopholes that really could cause massive issues. No one had even talked about it because we're so obsessed with progress that we're not actually, everyone's kind of too afraid to maybe ask the right questions and saying, well, hang on, is this actually appropriate? Have we worded it correctly? No, let's just stamp it through as quick as possible.
What do you feel about this, Fiona? It is a very controversial, it's a matter of conscience, I guess. Do you see that as essentially a good piece of legislation and just needs to have the conditions there to ensure that people don't take advantage of someone who's vulnerable and old and may feel like a burden? Or do you see this as stepping over a line? And I think it was Paul Keating who said that once you have essentially state-sponsored suicide, you've crossed a line that you can't go back.
It's a huge issue, isn't it, Rita? And I guess my concern is that it's not... We tend to associate voluntary euthanasia or assisted dying or whatever we want to call it with people who are, as you said, old, vulnerable and so on. And absolutely, the legislation must protect them. And luckily, we are discussing this openly as younger generations who may well face these decisions, and that's good. My concern, though, is also for the younger ones, so children who are minors, who also need to be protected, and to make sure that parents are as clear as possible about the rights of the parent versus the rights of the child, that the conversations with medical staff are as open and clear as possible. So I think there's actually a way to go before we can be satisfied that we're actually addressing all of the issues. And I might add, it concerns me that a country with which I am associated, Switzerland, is often the go-to for people who want to access assisted dying opportunities. And we shouldn't be in that situation where people feel they have to travel to another country to die.